Most people have been taught to believe that effort is the ultimate virtue, that if you just try hard enough, you'll eventually get what you want, and while that sounds nice, it's only half the truth. The reality is, effort without direction is like rowing a boat as hard as you can. In the wrong direction, you'll get somewhere, but it won't be where you wanted to go. And if the tide is against you, you might even end up further away than when you started. This is the trap most people fall into. They confuse activity with progress. They wake up early, work long hours, and tell themselves they're doing everything they can, but the scoreboard doesn't lie. If you've been working at something for years without meaningful results, you don't have a work ethic problem, you have a strategy problem, and the worst part, hard work without the right strategy actually becomes a liability because it convinces you you're on the right path when you're not. There's a psychological comfort in trying. It makes us feel virtuous, like we've paid our dues. We tell ourselves that we deserve results because we've suffered, we've sacrificed, we've given our time and energy. But life doesn't run on an emotional economy. It runs on a results economy. The market doesn't care how hard you worked. It cares whether you solved the problem. The client doesn't care about your hours. They care about your outcome. Trying in isolation doesn't produce outcomes. It just burns calories. And here's the kicker. Our brains are wired to reward effort more than results. That's why people stay stuck. You can spend weeks writing and rewriting your business plan, and your brain will pat you on the back for making progress. Even if the plan never gets executed, you can spend hours in the gym without a structured program and still feel accomplished, even though your body isn't changing. Effort triggers the dopamine hit, but it's fake progress, like running on a treadmill and expecting to arrive in another city. Now, this doesn't mean effort is irrelevant, it's essential, but only when it's aimed at the right target. Think about a sniper. It doesn't matter how fast they pull the trigger if they're aiming at the wrong building. The precision comes first. The pull of the trigger is just the execution. In life, your aim is your strategy. Your shot is your effort. If you mix up the order, if you shoot before you aim, you'll waste ammo and time. The truth is, the marketplace today is too competitive to reward blind effort. It's not like 100 years ago when simply working harder than the average person guaranteed you'd win. Back then, the bar was low because access to information, technology, and global competition didn't exist. But today, everyone has access to tools, knowledge, and resources. Hard work is the minimum price of entry, not the competitive edge. The differentiator now is intelligent hard work work that's designed, measured, and refined based on feedback. And this is where most people get uncomfortable, because strategy requires stopping long enough to think. It requires the humility to admit that what you've been doing might be wrong, and the courage to change it. That's hard, because change feels like starting over. But here's the uncomfortable truth. Starting over with the right plan is always faster than continuing with the wrong one. When you operate from a place of "I'm just going to try harder," you're making an emotional decision, not a rational one. Trying harder is seductive because it's simple. It doesn't require learning, adapting, or admitting mistakes. But strategy requires all three. It forces you to confront the inefficiencies, the wasted motion, the dead weight in your process. It forces you to measure what's working and cut what's not, even if you're emotionally attached to it. So if you're not getting the results you want, you don't need more hours in the day. You don't need more motivational quotes. You need a better map. And a better map comes from studying the terrain, learning from people who've already reached the destination you're aiming for, analyzing their routes, and adapting them to your circumstances. This is not weakness. This is not cheating. This is the fastest, most reliable way to win. Because here's the hard reality: in a world where everyone is trying harder is just more noise. You can't win by being louder in the crowd. You win by stepping out of the crowd entirely. The person who works 12 hours a day at a failing strategy will always lose to the person who works 6 hours a day at the right one. Effort multiplies results only when it's aimed in the right direction. So before you double down on your grind, stop and ask yourself, asterisk, if I keep doing exactly what I'm doing now, where will I be in a year? Asterisk, if the answer doesn't excite you, trying harder won't fix it. Strategy will. And the sooner you commit to thinking before doing, the sooner you'll find that the results you've been chasing for years were never about trying more. They were about trying asterisk right asterisk. The world doesn't pay you for effort. It pays you for outcomes. Make sure your effort earns its keep. The problem with trying is that it's almost always temporary. It's a sprint fueled by a burst of motivation, and motivation is like a sugar rush. It feels powerful in the moment, but it doesn't last. You wake up one morning fired up, you push yourself harder than usual, and you feel proud of the effort, but then life gets in the way. A bad night's sleep, an unexpected problem, a moment of doubt, and suddenly that fire is gone. And because your entire approach depended on being in the mood, your progress stops dead in its tracks. That's why consistency beats intensity every single time. It's not the one-off big effort that changes your life. It's the small, repeated actions you execute without fail, even when you're tired, distracted, or uninspired. The difference between amateurs and professionals is not talent, it's reliability. Amateurs work when they feel like it. Professionals work asterisk until asterisk it's done. Think about any real transformation, whether it's building a business, getting in shape, or mastering a skill. None of those things happen in a single heroic effort. They happen because of a long chain of unremarkable days stacked on top of each other. The days where you just show up and do the work, not because you're motivated, but because it's on the schedule. You've made it non-negotiable. The truth is, most people romanticize the idea of going all in for a short burst. It feels exciting to commit to a 30-day challenge, a week of insane productivity, or a weekend grind session. But those bursts don't build foundations, they burn energy, and when they're over, you're left right back where you started, maybe even more drained than before. The people who actually achieve long-term results don't treat their effort like a sprint, they treat it like a lifestyle. And here's the part that's hard for people to accept. Consistency is boring, it's not sexy. It's not worth posting on social media every day. No one's impressed by the fact that you just quietly did your work for the 37th day in a row. But boredom is the price you pay for mastery. You have to be willing to repeat the same small actions over and over, refining them until they become automatic. Once they are automatic, your results become inevitable, not because you tried harder, but because you kept showing up long enough for the compound effect to kick in. That's the beauty of consistency. It compounds. In the beginning, your effort feels invisible. You're putting in work and getting almost nothing in return. But if you keep stacking the bricks, one day you look up and realize you've built a wall so strong that nothing can knock it down. The problem is, most people quit stacking bricks because they can't see the wall forming fast enough. They confuse slow results with no results, and that's the exact moment they sabotage themselves. There's also a psychological advantage to consistency. It removes decision fatigue. When something is a daily habit, you stop asking yourself, do I feel like doing this today? The answer is irrelevant. You just do it. That's why systems beat willpower every time. Willpower is unreliable because it depends on your current emotional state. A system doesn't care how you feel. It's a contract you've made with yourself, and the more you honor it, the more you trust yourself to keep your word. This is why discipline is the great equalizer. Talent can give someone a head start, but without consistency, talent burns out. Luck can give someone an opportunity, but without consistency, luck evaporates. Discipline is what keeps you in the game long enough for skill and opportunity to intersect. And the truth is, most people don't lose because they're incapable. They lose because they can't stay consistent long enough to let the inevitable results show up. It's tempting to look at someone who's far ahead of you and think, They must be so much more talented, smarter, or luckier than I am. But if you studied their life closely, you'd see something much less glamorous. You'd see someone who simply didn't miss. Day after day, they kept stacking those boring, unsexy bricks while everyone else took breaks, restarted, or switched strategies the second things got hard. And here's the paradox. Once you've built the habit of consistency, it actually becomes easier than the alternative. Stopping becomes harder than continuing. You've built so much momentum, so much proof to yourself that you follow through, that not doing the thing feels unnatural. That's the point you want to get to, where your process is so ingrained that it feels like brushing your teeth. You don't try to do it, you just do it. So, if you're serious about achieving something big, stop thinking in terms of big efforts and start thinking in terms of small, repeatable actions you can sustain indefinitely. Make your process so simple and consistent that you can execute it on your best day ** your worst day. And then, here's the key: never break the chain. Not for a bad mood, not for a busy week, not for anything. Because once you realize that consistency turns effort into inevitability, you stop playing the short game. You stop chasing bursts of motivation and start building a machine that runs no matter what, and that machine will get you further than any trying harder ever could. Big wins come from small, repeated actions, done so consistently that the world has no choice but to take notice. The world we live in today doesn't just reward hard work, it rewards evolution. 10 years ago, you could have one good skill, one decent strategy, and ride it for decades. But now, the life of any competitive advantage is shrinking. What works today might be irrelevant in a year. Entire industries shift overnight. Technology you thought was cutting edge last year is outdated before you've even finished mastering it. The brutal truth is, if you're not adapting, you're not standing still. You are falling behind. And this is where trying becomes almost meaningless. You can try as hard as you want, but if you're trying to perfect an outdated approach, you're just getting better at losing. Effort on a dead strategy is like polishing a flip phone in the age of smartphones. No one cares how shiny it is because the world has moved on. Adaptation isn't optional anymore. It's the entry fee for staying relevant. The reason most people resist adaptation is psychological. It's rooted in comfort and ego. Once we've put years into learning something, we don't want to believe it's becoming obsolete. We want to keep playing the game we already know how to play. But the game is changing, and the scoreboard doesn't reward nostalgia. It rewards people who can let go of their old tools and pick up new ones without hesitation. Look at the companies that died in the last 20 years. Blockbuster, Kodak, BlackBerry. These weren't failures because they lacked resources or talent. They failed because they clung to what * used * to work. They mistook familiarity for security. Meanwhile, their competitors evolved, adopted new models, and left them behind. The same thing happens on an individual level. People cling to the skill set, mindset, and habits that got them to where they are, without realizing those same things are the very reason they can't get further. Adaptation requires humility, and humility is hard. It forces you to admit that what made you successful yesterday might be useless tomorrow. It forces you to be a beginner again, to enter spaces where you don't have all the answers, and to risk looking foolish. Most people would rather defend their old ways to the death than endure the temporary discomfort of starting fresh. That's why so many hardworking people stay stuck. They're not failing from lack of effort, they're failing from lack of evolution. The people who win over the long term have a different mindset. They see themselves not as finished products, but as constantly updating systems. They operate like software, always scanning for bugs, installing updates, and adding new features. They measure success not just by what they've achieved, but by how quickly they can pivot when the environment changes. And because they can adapt faster, they not only survive change, they use it to their advantage. Adaptation also demands that you detach from your identity. If you define yourself too rigidly, I'm a salesperson, I'm a designer, I'm a coach. Then when the market shifts and that role changes, you panic. But if you define yourself by your asterisk ability to learn asterisk, you're free. You're not tied to one tool, one strategy, or one platform. You're tied to the skill of upgrading yourself, which means you'll always find a way to stay in the game. Here's the thing, you don't have to predict every change, you just have to be ready to respond to it. The goal isn't to avoid disruption, it's to build a version of yourself that can thrive in disruption. That means deliberately exposing yourself to new challenges, new industries, new technologies, even before you need them. It means training the muscle of adaptation so that when change comes, you're not reacting out of fear, you're executing out of readiness. And yes, it's uncomfortable. Growth always is. Adaptation isn't just about acquiring new skills, it's about shedding old ones. It's about killing off versions of yourself that no longer serve you. That's not easy, because those versions got you here. But if you let loyalty to your past outweigh curiosity for your future, you've already chosen decline. Think about it like this. Every year, the you that exists right now is going to be obsolete. Your job is to replace yourself before the world does. If you're still operating on the same thinking, the same habits, the same skill set as you were a year ago, you've been standing still. And in a moving world, standing still is losing ground. So you can either resist change and get forced into it, or you can lead the change and make it work for you. But you can't do neither. The days when trying harder was enough are gone. Today, the currency of success is adaptability. The faster you can learn, unlearn, and relearn, the faster you can take advantage of opportunities that others aren't even looking at yet. Because in the end, survival doesn't go to the strongest or the smartest. It goes to the most adaptable. And in this game, adaptation isn't a skill you develop once. It's a habit you practice forever. Upgrade or get replaced. That's the choice.